and I have always felt strongly that whatever the community thinks is because they're taking their cue from us. You know, when you think about the earlier years, we built a school building, we put kids here, we asked for community money to do that, you know, and they're saying, well, they're the experts in kids with developmental disabilities. So if they build a building and they've got they're busing in kids from all over the county, then they must need to be there because they're the experts. So over time, then that's what they expect to have happen. You know, and I think then the more they see people, especially through employment, but I think that we as boards have only recently begun to realize the huge responsibility we have to help teach the public about what people with developmental disabilities can do. You know, all those years we were a school, people said, well, they must need to be there. You know, then as special education in public schools kind of came up, and now kids are educated in, well, now kids belong in school. So I think we are, this next decade in particular, we will be very much challenging some of the last of those earlier, that earlier set of expectations or things that we taught the community about people. You know, we've kind of come full circle now. And, you know, hopefully at the end of another decade, it's just assumed people will work. You know, I mean, we will have made, you know, now at least people in Licking County expect kids with developmental disabilities to go to school. You know, they expect to see kids on the playground. They expect to see people in their community and being part of their community. You know, I mean, we've made a tremendous, I think, amount of progress in bringing as we've learned, we've helped the community to learn. But that's an actual responsibility we have to bear as the board, is to bring people along.
During that time, you know, just the medical things were significant, and at that time, sort of a standard of care was to receive those services in an institutional setting if there were those kind of medical issues, as well as more severe or more significant levels of intellectual disability.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of, I guess, in that state of diagnostically people were put into categories, and folks who were sort of in that mild range tended to live at home still because they were able to acquire sort of day-to-day living skills.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was a large group that had medical disabilities of various kinds and were more significant in terms of their intellectual deficits. They required more in terms of self-help skills, or they did not have self-help skills much. So the institutional setting was kind of thrown out there by the state government as a way to serve a large amount of people. So the 50s was kind of the time where that was pretty prevalent, while at the same time things were happening in the community development as well.
Yeah. Well, I do recall talking with Mom in the last month about you know, what was the tone of the community back in the late 50s and early 60s. You know, was it encouraging and accepting, or was it like, oh, those people belong in the state institution? And she said sort of emphatically that everybody in Newark and Licking County community in general, and the power players, if you will, came together, and it's like, yeah, we need to embrace these services. So, you know, if Eleanor Wyant was the political force behind that, difference in terms of how services grew.
But Eleanor Wyant and Katie Carter were the movers and shakers in the community. The Wyants had a business, and they knew a lot of people that were very influential and could help get funds raised. Because Katie Carter was one of the first moms. She had a severely handicapped son, and the moms were meeting in the homes. They had a group of them that met on a regular basis and would get together, compare notes about the situation,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But Eleanor Wyant is one that was very influential, and she'd go to Columbus to the legislatures, and she went everywhere to get stuff going and get money so they could build. Opened this, we only took children that were at least 6 years old. They had to be school age. And I can't remember when they started the preschool, because that happened shortly after that. Tier 2, they had the adults in here. They pulled them out of these condemned buildings and church basements, and there was a whole workshop in the back end. And I know we surprised a lot of parents who had sheltered their children and thought they couldn't do this and couldn't do that, you know, and found out that they had more capabilities than they thought. Well, they had a mother's club that met on a regular basis. Yeah, the mother's club was very active. They did a lot of activities for the kids. You know, they'd come in and do like maybe a Halloween party or a birthday party or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
specific things. And they had a full-time home visitor. I remember her. She was, I don't know if she was a nurse, but her name was Alma Shue, and she went to the homes all the time. That was her full-time job.
Anyhow, she kept saying, there should be a school for these children. There's no provision for taking care of children with disabilities.
Was it Katie Carter? Is that who you're
That's the
talking
one,
about?
yes,
Yep.
Katie Carter.
Katie Carter. Her son's name was Billy, I believe.
Huh?
Was it Billy? Her
That's
son was
right.
Billy Carter?
Good for you, uh-huh. So you know about her.
Yeah, a little
Well,
bit.
she's really the instigator of getting things started. And she got several other mothers of children who were disabled, and she even kept some of them at her house and tried to teach them some things. And it was very hard. The Newark school system was not at all interested for a long time in doing anything about children with disabilities. But finally, Jane Marsh came along and sort of got things going a little bit more. And then Eleanor Wyant got interested in all of this. I don't think it was much before 1960 that Jane and Eleanor got busy and started
That's right, yeah.
moving things a little bit. And they finally got the Newark schools to offer a classroom. And every year they changed the school. They just shoved us around any place that they might have had open. And it was pretty hard because, you never knew where you were going to be next year. And of course, in the beginning, there weren't any classes for teachers. And they had to get volunteers who came and who didn't necessarily know much about what to do. They just had to use their own ingenuity to take care of the children and try to get them to learn something. We were in the other public schools. They wouldn't allow the children to drink out of the fountains. I had to be responsible for having water and cups and everything for the children to get their drinkable water. In 1967, with Eleanor Wyant was very influential with the county trustees, and she was a very good friend of mine and very nice wonderful lady who was good at getting things done. And anyhow, they finally got enough people interested and got the county interested and the trustees interested. And they planned Starlight School. And that was when things we were able to have a workshop. So once we got Starlight School, things looked up considerably.
In those days, you know, they were in the institutions. They had them hidden. They didn't want anybody to know. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, the concept of these kids was so bad in those years because before the school was built, they had kids out in one of the buildings out on the East End, and that's when my husband had already started, and they were trying to get the money to build this building. And some of these parents came out in the newspaper, letters to the editor. We don't want our children in there with those kids. They're going to catch this. They're going to get that. You know, they were afraid that it was going to rub off on them. But there was so much negativity. It took a while to really get the community behind them, you know, to get the money for this. Yeah, I mean, it took a while, but it took a lot of work with everybody in the community to get the image changed that really these kids could do things, and, you know, they were citizens just like anybody else.
The idea was to give them as many experiences as you were able to do. I mean, when I had that handicap class, we used to have a dance with the wheelchairs, and that was fun. And of course, there were a lot of things they couldn't do. Really, we were trying to teach their parents how to take care of them and how to feed them and get them as independent as possible, and so that they could stay at home and wouldn't have to go to an institute. And of course, when they did their when they opened up all the institutes, that was a very difficult time because here were all these people who suddenly needed help and everything, who didn't really have any idea of what was going on because they'd been in an institute for years. So that was hard. And as the workshop was established by the Licking County Board, then people were a lot more noticing because they noticed that people were coming out into the community and getting jobs, and then of course other people who had children with disabilities began to know that there was something that they could do, and it kind of came out of the dark. It wasn't something that people were hiding as much. Once the school got established and the workshop got established, people began to realize that these people really could do things. And stop and think what a long way it's come now.
When I came to that county, I guess I start by saying what there wasn't. The adult program was housed in the back of the school building, the Starlight School building, and there was no identifiable location for the adult program. There was the LICO board, which worked with the director of the workshop, and I had to work hard to get the board to agree, and then to get the county commissioners to agree to go for a tax levy to generate funds to change where we were and to improve services. So I got on, we did a campaign, we passed a levy to generate an operational fund. But so what we needed to do was we got the adult program, we housed it and built a brand new facility over on in Heath, and so that was part of it. What I accomplished was to get an identity for and a place for the adult program. We had no infant program, no program for preschool. And so I worked with Title I and got funding to fund an infant development program, a preschool program, and so that was added to what was offered in the county. I hired case management. I instituted the whole area of case management services. There was no residential program, and so I worked to get the ARC to start a home. We bought 2 houses with county funds and opened 2 resident homes. Got a residential director hired, and then we got these homes and got state assistance and so on. So really the program when I was there really, I would say, developed immensely because everybody referred to it as Starlight School.
Right.
It was the Starlight School program. It wasn't the county program. It wasn't the MRDD program. It was just the Starlight School. And, Starlight School for adults. And that's why I felt we needed to get a separate identity for that so that we got a building for that and was able to move all the adult program over to there. We just expanded a lot of things and got a lot of programs going to offer for the entire county. I mean, we got a home services. With case management, we were able to get out to these people who, for whatever reason, they never came to any program at all. They just lived at home. And so we got out there and got these people involved. We got the residential program so that we could get individuals out of their home setting or bring people back from state institutions to live in their home county. So I think we accomplished a pretty remarkable amount. So I think we improved the lives of people in Licking County, the families as well as the individuals that we served.
After Larry left the superintendent position, essentially he got in business in the residential business.
Okay.
And Gary McAnally is an architect locally, still practices. And so the two of them kind of put their heads together and created the first 2 group homes of that era. And each of them, I think at that time, each of them had 12, they were 12-bed homes. And so there was, that was a seminal moment because it allowed some folks that were Licking County origin in terms of residency that were living in state developmental centers for many, many, many years that kind of opened up the door for them to come into the community. But prior to the ANMAC homes, there were the 2 homes that were operated by the Licking County ARC. I guess it was Jane Marsh's group. To make 78, where the Licking County Council of Retarded Children, that was led by Jane Marsh, had opened both the Marsh House and Sterrett House, men's home and women's home. Those were the first 2 group homes in the community. But in '78, Newark Resident Homes split from the ARC.
Okay.
At that point in time, operationally split. And I was on the board of Newark Resident Homes during that time where they split, and kind of ushered that in a little bit. So the ARC and Newark Resident Homes essentially split into 2 separate organizations. Newark Resident Homes was basically
two homes were initially developed to serve higher functioning folks in the community. That was the first foray that I know of group home development in Lincoln County.
Yeah, one of the nice things was that we were able to expand our early intervention program, and that was always one of my favorite programs. You're not supposed to have favorites, but we kind of do that. Expansion of early intervention, and then statewide, I was very proud to have been part of the movement that changed the definition of who was eligible for county board services. We then could provide services to more than just people with mental retardation, that we actually started serving with other developmental disabilities.
Well, the last 5 years that I worked here, though, I was out in the community because we had kids at Montessori, we had kids and different disabilities. And it was really neat because we had people that had never been around these kids. And well, it was like we'd have maybe 1 or 2 students in one of those programs, and that was my job the last couple of years, to go and follow those kids, and we were trying to educate the rest of the community.
I can remember driving up the street to learn SY at school and going in a classroom and just kind of sitting down and chilling out with people that was or going into a preschool classroom and sitting on the floor and playing with the little kids or something like that. And we certainly had our bumps in the road and all that, but looking back on it, it was a wonderful experience for me, and I hope it was for everybody else when I was there.
We had a consumer council back from when Cheryl was there, continued during the Hal Worthman 3-year superintendency, and for a while into Nancy's superintendency, and then it kind of became something we grew out of and we went forward in other ways. But the council was organized to give the employees at LICO an opportunity to voice their ideas and feelings and take a more active role in planning the services and activities there. And also not just people at LICO, but people who we served in the community. And also some parents were involved with the council. So it was just kind of a way to get together once a month. We'd have a lunch and talk about what was on their mind, or we'd tell them things that were coming up that might be something they'd want to get involved with.
Mainly the changes have been in how we deliver services.
Mm-hmm.
In '84, we had Starlight School. I guess it was Wyatt by then, and we had like a workshop. Served the adults. Wyatt served the kids, and that was kind of the system.
Mm-hmm.
And when Nancy came, job development kind of increased in that period of time. There was a lot more production work at between 84 and 87, as I recall. And there was the community job enclaves thing was kind of starting. We had guys for a long time making pallets, and then that spun off, and they got their own building and so forth. What else was kind of happening during that time? New residential providers were coming into the county to develop group homes. So what started with the Marsh House and Sterrett House under NRH kind of led to ANMAC homes, led to other group home providers coming into town, which just allowed more opportunities for people to have residential care.
So, seeing where Licking County fit into the picture, I was always very proud to go around the state and see where other of the 88 counties were in the process of moving forward, and quite often we were ahead of the curve. I really felt that. Even if I stepped back and thought, am I just feeling that way because I was part of it? I don't think so. I'm saying we're definitely one of the top 10 counties in being visionary, where things were going. Both Cheryl Phipps and Nancy Neely were superintendents that looked way down the road and for some reason just had kind of a compass for where to be going in the future. So it was great to work with people like that. I pretty much see the county boards as being an umbrella of packaging services and helping people to get what they need, but not necessarily being the ones to deliver those services. And also to train people to understand that people with disabilities can do whatever they feel they're capable of doing, and help them to be as successful as they can be.
At first I was thinking, man, we didn't do anything big from 2010 onward, but that's actually not true. But it was just, again, we had the momentum. The momentum was there to just keep saying, okay, what's the next thing we do to add value and to improve the outcomes for people at these stages? But yeah, I mean, the early intervention to early childhood, the focus on transition and employment first, the self-advocacy, all that stuff did happen in those 5 years. Residential supports, I'm really excited. And the way we support people who need to live away from their home or family, and in some cases who are still living at home, but but have staff come into home and support them in their own home with their families. That is, in my mind, it took longer, and it's been evolving really over a period of almost 20 years, but that is really exciting. And the self-advocacy movement is beautiful because for the first time we realized that we could just talk to people about what they like and what they don't like, what works for them and what doesn't. And they can tell us.
When I first got in the field, it was very paternalistic, and people with disabilities, especially people with mental retardation, learning disabilities, were all kind of, it's like, let's put all those people in the same place. And of course, the institutions were huge back then when I first got involved, and there were many more of them than there are now. But even in the communities, it was like, well, we need a segregated school, we need the segregated sheltered workshop, and it was rare that anyone was thought to be capable of working in the community. Sometimes you'd find somebody whose parents might own a business, and then that person worked there or something like that. But generally, there was not a lot of belief in the capabilities of people with developmental disabilities, and that has dramatically changed over time. Lots and lots of people work in the community and are involved in all kinds of community organizations, which is wonderful. I always said in my speeches that people with disabilities are more like us than they're different from us, and I think that really is the way it is now. I think Ohio has a lot to be proud of, but that's a biggie, is that people with disabilities can sit down and talk with somebody without disabilities. They can actually go to school with somebody without disabilities in a regular kind of educational setting and work in the community.
And now we're at that period of time where the state has decided that jobs is the major thing that we gotta get. But we're still dealing with things like direct care staff shortages, people underpaid for what they're doing, still trying to manage the mental health needs of folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Still haven't figured that one out. Yeah, and now we've got to focus on transition services, which is fantastic. That's a huge area.
after all these years, that the issues with recruitment of staff and wages for direct care staff, it's still right there. So as the state kind of leads us philosophically into jobs is really important, and we got to have transition services and get people sort of planning for the future.
We know today that one size doesn't fit all, that it's really hard unless you have a niche to cater to, because we serve people with such a variety of needs. We want providers to be able to develop their own niches and get really good at what they do, what they choose to do. We want people to have choice in where they go.
Yeah.
Because we recognize one size does not fit all. And when you know that this is a better way to go, then you have an obligation, I think, to make that change, even if it means changing up your organization and changing up your structure. We know way more today than we did 50 years ago.
Yeah.
In 10 years, we'll know a lot more. And so that's why momentum is so cool, because the day we stop having it is the day we stop paying attention and better educating ourselves and people around us about how we can support people with developmental disabilities. It's about somebody graduating from high school and getting a job and making money. And, and people actually getting to live a life that, satisfies them, makes them happy, and they have family and friends around them.
So I think it's important that the people served and their families remain number one.